In the vast and serene waters of Lake Michigan, stretching over nearly 22,000 square miles, a quiet mystery has endured for centuries. The lake, with its gently rolling waves and soft horizon, seems calm at first glance, but beneath its surface lies a story of countless ships that have vanished, sometimes without a trace, leaving only whispers in the winds of history. These are the ghost ships of Lake Michigan, vessels whose silent fates continue to intrigue historians, sailors, and those who cherish the slow, reflective study of the past. Lake Michigan has been a highway for explorers, traders, and settlers since the earliest days of European contact with the Great Lakes region. The lake's vastness offered opportunities for commerce, transport, and fishing, yet it also carried dangers that were as subtle as they were profound. Storms could rise without warning, waves could overturn a small vessel, and dense fog could hide obstacles that would end the life of even the most experienced captain. It was in these calm yet unpredictable waters that many ships simply disappeared, leaving behind little more than a record in the newspapers of the time, and in the recollections of those who survived or witnessed the mysterious events. Among the earliest recorded incidents is the disappearance of the schooner Francis T. Lee, which in the late 1800s sailed from Chicago to Green Bay, only to vanish during a foggy morning. The ship was expected to arrive within 2 days, but when it did not, a search began. Small rowboats and local vessels scoured the waves, but no trace of the Lee or her crew was ever found. Historians speculate that a sudden storm or a collision with unseen debris could have caused the disappearance, but no definitive explanation has ever emerged. The mystery of such incidents is compounded by the silence of Lake Michigan itself. The water covers all evidence, leaving behind a calm, empty surface, as if nothing had occurred at all. Over the years, dozens of other vessels met similar fates. The Lady Elgin, a steamship carrying passengers across the lake in 1860, collided with another vessel during a storm and sank quickly. Unlike the Lee, the Lady Elgin left some survivors and was widely reported. But the suddenness of the event and the lack of modern rescue technology at the time meant that many lives were lost, and the ship itself became a ghostly presence in maritime history. Its story is told not in shrieks or dramatic retellings, but in the meticulous logs of historians and the careful recollections of families whose ancestors were aboard that fateful journey. These stories, while tragic, are narrated in a calm, reflective way, allowing us to appreciate both the majesty of Lake Michigan and the quiet inevitability of human struggle against nature. The ghost ships are not horror tales. They are accounts of endurance, chance, and the subtle, often invisible forces of the lake that have claimed countless vessels. Each disappearance has left behind a layer of folklore, a story passed slowly from one generation to the next, whispering across the waves and embedding itself in the collective memory of the region. Local folklore has preserved these events in a particularly reflective style. Fishermen and sailors speak of ships seen in the distance, silent and unmoving, appearing through the morning mist, only to vanish as the sun rises higher. These stories are never rushed. They are told slowly, with pauses that mimic the rhythm of the lake itself. The accounts emphasize observation, patience, and the careful recording of what was witnessed, rather than dramatic speculation or fear. Some historians have pointed to weather phenomena as explanations for the ghost ship sightings. Dense fog, sudden squalls, and unusual currents could create optical illusions, making a distant ship appear closer or stationary, only to disappear as one approached. Even so, these natural explanations do not diminish the quiet fascination of the tales. On the contrary, they add depth to our understanding of how humans interpret the lake, how memory and perception interact with the calm but powerful forces of nature, and how the lake itself becomes a character in the story, shaping events without intent or malice. The ghost ships also reflect the human aspect of life on the Great Lakes. Crew members and passengers relied on rudimentary navigational tools, a careful understanding of the waters, and collective experience passed from captain to sailor. The disappearance of a vessel was not simply a physical event. It represented the slow unraveling of human planning, the limits of knowledge, and the way the lake's calm surface could conceal sudden danger. Each story is layered with the quiet reflection on human effort, nature's indifference, and the enduring mystery that lies beneath the waves. Among these ghost ships, the Carl D. Bradley, a freighter that sank in 1958, has become one of the most discussed. Carrying iron ore from Escanaba to Detroit, the ship broke apart during a storm, taking 33 of its 35 crew members with it. Despite extensive recovery efforts, many bodies were never found, and the wreckage was discovered months later. Again, the story is not told for shock value, but in a slow, meditative recounting. The ship's construction, the cargo it carried, the daily life of sailors aboard, and the gradual arrival of winter storms that sealed its fate. The calm narration allows us to consider not just the tragedy, but the broader context of life on the lake, the natural rhythms that dictate both opportunity and risk, and the enduring presence of the lake in the human imagination. Historians continue to study these ships, consulting logs, weather reports, and survivor accounts. Even decades later, these ghost ships teach lessons about careful observation, patience, and the necessity of respecting natural forces. The lake, with its vast expanse, remains largely unchanged, maintaining a silent authority over the waters and the ships that navigate them. Each story is thus a meditation on time, nature, and memory, slowly unfolding like the waves themselves. Continuing along the serene waters of Lake Michigan, we can imagine the daily life of those who navigated its vast expanse. Sailors and traders depended on the lake for commerce, carrying goods, passengers, and raw materials from city to city. Ships like the Cedarville, the George H. Warren, and countless schooners threaded their way through channels and bays, moving deliberately, cautiously, and with constant attention to weather and water conditions. The calm surface of the lake often belied the hidden dangers below, creating a slow tension that only careful observers could detect. The ghost ships of Lake Michigan were not always lost to violent storms. In many cases, they simply faded into history, abandoned by their crews or sunk by slow, unseen forces. Ships left unattended in winter, frozen in shallow waters, or corroded by decades of exposure gradually became silent reminders of human endeavor and fragility. Locals often described seeing the outlines of these vessels in misty mornings, the hulls partially submerged, as if the lake itself were gently cradling them, preserving a quiet monument to lives once lived. Take, for example, the story of the Oconto, a small wooden freighter that disappeared without a trace in the early 20th century. Its crew had embarked on a routine journey from Milwaukee to Green Bay, expecting calm waters. Yet, despite careful navigation and favorable weather reports, the ship never reached its destination. Months later, fishermen reported finding floating debris miles from the intended route. There was no storm, no explosion, no dramatic evidence, simply a disappearance that left families, historians, and the local communities reflecting slowly on the limits of understanding. These stories, when told in a calm, deliberate tone, transform the idea of ghost ships from a frightening tale to a meditation on nature and human persistence. Each vanished vessel encourages reflection on the skill required to traverse the lake, the patience needed to survive in an unpredictable environment, and the subtle power of the lake itself. Observation becomes a tool, not just for navigation, but for understanding the delicate balance between human effort and the quiet forces of water, wind, and time. Sailors who traversed the lake often noted subtle signs of these lost ships, a faint silhouette through morning fog, an unusual shadow on the horizon, or a ripple where no vessel should be. All became opportunities for careful reflection. Instead of panic or fear, the stories emphasize slow observation and methodical reasoning. Fishermen learned to respect these signs, noting them down in logs, sharing them with colleagues, and considering them part of the natural rhythm of the lake. The Daniel J. Morrell, one of the more famous freighters to meet its end on Lake Michigan in 1966, illustrates this reflective approach. Caught in a violent November storm, the ship slowly broke apart, each wave eroding the hull, each gust of wind testing the crew's endurance. Unlike sensationalized horror stories, the calm retelling focuses on the meticulous preparation of the crew, the slow progression of the storm, and the patient, deliberate attempts to save both ship and cargo. Even in tragedy, there is a rhythm, a sequence of events unfolding methodically, which can be observed, recorded, and reflected upon. Local folklore adds another dimension to these stories. Villagers, lighthouse keepers, and travelers spoke of ghostly silhouettes appearing near harbors, ships that seemed to sail silently past, and lights flickering on decks where no crew was present. These accounts, passed down over decades, rarely included dramatic exclamations or fear-laden language. Instead, they were recounted slowly, often as part of broader conversations about life on the lake, commerce, and the careful attention required to survive its shifting moods. Historical records, such as shipping manifests, newspapers, and port logs, further deepen the understanding of these calm mysteries. They describe the careful planning of routes, the skill of captains, and the daily routines of crews who navigated the waters. When a ship disappeared, these records allowed historians to reconstruct events, piece by piece, without resorting to sensational storytelling. The calm method of documentation mirrors the slow rhythms of the lake itself, offering readers a meditative perspective on history. Even the natural environment plays a subtle, reflective role. Fog rolling over the water, gentle swells, and hidden sandbars all contribute to a setting where ships can vanish slowly, almost imperceptibly. This is not about sudden terror, but the quiet understanding that human effort meets limits, that even the most skilled captains are humbled by the expansive, calm, and sometimes unpredictable waters of Lake Michigan. Through these ghost ship stories, one observes a recurring theme: the interplay between preparation and unpredictability, human skill and natural forces, action and reflection. The lake is neither malevolent nor benign. It simply exists, a vast, calm witness to the stories of those who have traversed it. The ships that disappear become markers of time, patience, and endurance, reminding us that history is often found not in dramatic events, but in the quiet, contemplative observation of what unfolds slowly over years, decades, or even centuries. As we continue reflecting on the ghost ships of Lake Michigan, it becomes clear that these vanished vessels are more than isolated incidents. They form a quiet tapestry of human endeavor, resilience, and interaction with nature. Each ship that disappeared carries a story of careful planning, slow navigation, and measured effort, all disrupted by forces beyond human control. Yet in their disappearance, there is also a lesson in observation, patience, and the contemplative appreciation of history. The stories of the ghost ships also highlight the close relationship between communities and the lake itself. Coastal towns along Lake Michigan, from Chicago to Manitowoc, depended on these vessels for survival, trade, and connection. When a ship was lost, families waited patiently, following slow developments reported by other captains or by distant ports. Letters, newspapers, and logs recorded every detail, each word weighed carefully, reflecting the measured pace of communication in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Unlike the dramatic, fast-paced stories often associated with disasters today, these accounts were deliberate, considered, and slow-moving, an echo of the lake's own rhythm. The lake itself serves as a constant, reflective character in these narratives. Calm on most days, it holds the power to conceal, to preserve, and to teach subtle lessons. Fishermen and sailors learn to read its moods, to notice small changes in color, wind, or water temperature, and to respect the hidden currents beneath the tranquil surface. These skills were passed slowly from one generation to the next, forming an oral and practical history that intertwined with written records. The ghost ships are reminders of this enduring, patient relationship between humans and nature. One particularly reflective case is the M.E. Norman, a wooden schooner that vanished quietly in the early 1900s. Unlike storm-driven disasters, the Norman's disappearance was gradual. Evidence suggests it may have run aground during fog. Its crew relocated slowly to safety, and yet the vessel remained trapped until it deteriorated over years. This story, when recounted slowly, allows listeners to appreciate the rhythms of the lake, the deliberate movements of sailors, and the quiet inevitability of change. The calm narration emphasizes observation over fear, reflection over drama, and patience over instant understanding. Even today, divers and maritime archaeologists approach these ghost ships with careful, methodical respect. Wreckage is explored slowly, documented precisely, and interpreted thoughtfully. Each artifact, an anchor, a rusted bell, a fragment of a hull, becomes a piece of a larger story, connecting human history with the vast, enduring presence of the lake. The slow pace of these investigations mirrors the gentle waves above, reinforcing the meditative nature of the entire narrative. Local folklore continues to preserve these stories, often blending fact with legend in a reflective way. Tales of ships appearing in misty mornings, lights flickering across empty decks, or phantom sails gliding silently over waves are passed down quietly, without sensationalism. They are reminders of the lake's history, the patient endurance of sailors, and the quiet fascination that humans have with things they cannot fully understand. The calm tone allows us to appreciate these legends as part of the broader rhythm of life on Lake Michigan, rather than as sources of fear. As we bring our reflection to a close, it becomes clear that the ghost ships of Lake Michigan teach enduring lessons about history, patience, and human endeavor. They are markers not of sudden disaster, but of the slow passage of time, the subtle power of nature, and the careful observation required to understand our environment. The lake holds them gently, allowing us to explore, imagine, and reflect without urgency or alarm. In the end, the ghost ships remain as quiet sentinels of Lake Michigan's history. They remind us that while human effort is deliberate and measured, nature operates on its own rhythms, often invisible yet profoundly influential. Through patient observation, careful study, and reflective storytelling, we gain a deeper understanding, not only of the ships themselves, but of the lake, the people who navigated it, and the enduring calm of history itself. Thus, the ghost ships of Lake Michigan are not tales of fear or sudden tragedy. They are meditations on life, nature, and human resilience. They are stories to be absorbed slowly, pondered carefully, and reflected upon, offering a sense of calm and connection to the past, as if the lake itself is whispering across the waves, carrying the memories of those who once sailed upon it. And so, with the sun setting softly over the horizon, the waves lapping gently along the shore, and the calm expanse of water stretching endlessly, the story of the ghost ships comes to a serene conclusion. The vessels have disappeared, but their quiet legacy endures, inviting us to observe, reflect, and appreciate the delicate balance between human endeavor and the enduring, contemplative presence of Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario, vast and serene as they stretch across the North American landscape, have long held secrets beneath their reflective surfaces. While the calm waters appear placid, they are the home of countless stories passed slowly through generations. Among these stories, none captures the imagination more gently than the accounts of lake serpents and unknown creatures, beings glimpsed, sometimes briefly, often in the soft glow of dawn or the fading light of evening. These are not tales of terror. Rather, they are slow meditations on nature, imagination, and the quiet rhythm of life by the water. Locals have long told stories of strange shapes moving beneath the surface, creatures whose size, form, and behavior defy ordinary understanding. Fishermen along the shores of Lake Michigan recount seeing long, undulating forms gliding smoothly under the water, leaving only ripples in their wake. These sightings are never rushed tales. Instead, they are narrated deliberately, with attention to the subtleties of movement, the shimmer of scales, and the way light reflects off the water. Each account emphasizes patience, careful observation, and a quiet sense of wonder rather than shock or fear. Historically, these reports have been recorded sporadically in local newspapers, journals, and diaries. In the mid-1800s, a fisherman near Muskegon wrote of a creature with a serpentine body, dark scales glinting under the morning sun, moving silently along the shoreline. He described it slowly, noting the length, the undulating motion, and the way the creature seemed to observe him as much as he observed it. No dramatic words are used. The tone is calm, measured, and contemplative. Lake Erie, too, has a long history of strange creature sightings. In the early 20th century, residents of small towns along its shores reported unusual wakes, large shadows beneath boats, and occasional glimpses of a long form moving with remarkable speed. These accounts were written carefully, passed slowly from person to person, and never sensationalized in the way modern media might depict them. The focus remained on observation, reflection, and the quiet acknowledgement that the lake holds mysteries beyond immediate comprehension. Lake Ontario, the easternmost of the Great Lakes, carries its own tales. Here, the serpents are sometimes described as slower moving, nearly imperceptible in the stillness of early morning. Rowers and small ferry operators spoke of a gentle disturbance in the water, a shadow that seems to stretch and contract, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. Again, the narrative emphasizes calm observation, noting the environment, the reflection of light, and the subtlety of the movement. The stories are meditative, creating a connection between the observer and the lake itself. The slow retelling of these accounts allows us to see patterns emerge. Often, creatures appear near the mouths of rivers or shallow bays where fish are plentiful. Fishermen's logs suggest that sightings occur most commonly in early morning when the water is still, and the lake reflects the colors of the sky in muted tones. Each observation is paired with careful notes on wind, weather, and water temperature, showing a deliberate effort to understand the environment. In these accounts, the creatures are not terrifying. They are part of the lake's slow rhythm, reminders of the hidden life beneath the reflective surface. Some historical sketches and illustrations provide visual records. Artists of the late 19th century, inspired by local accounts, drew serpentine forms with undulating bodies and long tapering tails. These illustrations are calm in tone, emphasizing proportion and movement over sensationalism. The sketches were often accompanied by precise descriptions, noting the creature's length, the shimmer of scales, and the gentle arcs of its motion through the water. These early depictions reflect the meditative approach of observers who sought understanding rather than fear. The legends of lake serpents also reveal cultural intersections. Native American tribes along the Great Lakes have long told stories of water beings, often described as guardians of the lakes or spirits of the water. European settlers adopted and adapted some of these tales, integrating them into local folklore. Over decades, the stories blended, forming a rich tapestry of myth and observation, all passed slowly, quietly, and with deep respect for the power of the lakes. In each case, the creatures are seen as part of the natural world, interacting with humans and fish alike. Fishermen sometimes noted that the serpents would appear near nets, but never attack, moving with deliberate grace. The calm, reflective tone of these reports suggests that the lake itself was a teacher, revealing only glimpses of its hidden life to those willing to observe slowly, patiently, and without urgency. As we continue our slow journey across the Great Lakes, the stories of serpentine creatures deepen, revealing a rhythm of observation, patience, and quiet fascination. These accounts are not about sudden shocks or dramatic appearances. Instead, they focus on the gentle awareness of the water, the subtle movements beneath the surface, and the human capacity to notice and record what is often fleeting. Fishermen and sailors along Lake Michigan have long described the lake serpents as elongated, dark forms gliding smoothly just beneath the waves. The descriptions vary, yet share common qualities: undulating motion, reflective scales, and a silent presence. Observers emphasize that the creatures often appear near areas rich with fish or submerged vegetation, suggesting that their movements are deliberate, connected to the lake's ecology rather than to human presence. Each sighting is slow, methodical, almost meditative, capturing a quiet moment of connection between the observer and the hidden life of the lake. Lake Erie, known for its shallow waters and complex currents, adds another layer to the mystery. Residents along the southern shore recount seeing long shadows following their boats, wakes that seem to form without a visible vessel, and movements that defy explanation. Unlike sensational accounts, these stories are often written in diaries or local newsletters, emphasizing accuracy and careful detail. Observers describe how the creature's undulations interact with the natural currents, producing patterns of water movement that are both mesmerizing and mysterious. The calm tone invites reflection rather than alarm, encouraging us to consider the lake as an ecosystem full of life, yet partly unseen. Historical sketches further preserve these observations. Artists from the late 19th and early 20th centuries created detailed drawings of serpentine lake creatures, emphasizing proportion, graceful motion, and integration with the water environment. The sketches often accompany notes from fishermen or early naturalists, noting length, texture, and behavior. The illustrations are calm and deliberate, devoid of sensationalism, reflecting a slow-paced approach to understanding phenomena that are unusual but not threatening. Native American traditions provide additional context, connecting modern sightings to centuries of lore. Tribes around Lake Ontario spoke of water serpents as guardians, spirits that maintained balance within the lakes. The creatures were neither malevolent nor benign in a dramatic sense. Rather, they were integral to the natural rhythm, observed respectfully, and featured in stories that emphasized patience, attentiveness, and careful observation. European settlers incorporated these tales into local folklore, merging myth with real-life sightings to create a layered understanding of the lake's hidden inhabitants. Even in more recent decades, local news and personal accounts have continued this tradition. In the 1960s, fishermen in the northern parts of Lake Michigan reported seeing long, sinuous shapes beneath the water while checking nets at dawn. Observers noted that the creatures would appear briefly, glide along underwater vegetation, and vanish as silently as they had appeared. Scientists consulted on these events focused on ecological and hydrodynamic explanations, but the calm, detailed observations remain valuable as records of human interaction with the mysterious life beneath the water. Importantly, the stories emphasize perception and reflection over action. Observers often wait, watching ripples, the play of light on scales, and the way creatures navigate currents. These slow observations allow for understanding patterns over time, recording behavior, and appreciating the subtle intelligence that seems inherent in these creatures' movements. It is this meditative, deliberate approach that gives the lake serpents their enduring place in the collective memory of those living along the Great Lakes. The ecological perspective adds depth to the narrative. Lake Michigan and Lake Erie are rich in fish and aquatic plants, creating environments that could support previously undocumented species. Observers note that sightings often correlate with feeding activity, subtle changes in water temperature, or the movement of schools of fish. By maintaining calm, patient attention, fishermen were able to distinguish unusual activity from ordinary disturbances, recording details with precision. These accounts, collected slowly over decades, form a coherent picture of a lake alive with slow, deliberate motion beneath its placid surface. The calm narration also allows us to reflect on human imagination and interpretation. When one sees a long, undulating shadow beneath the water, it is natural to wonder what might be there. Yet in these accounts, the emphasis is never on fear. Instead, the stories encourage thoughtful curiosity, reflection on ecological patterns, and appreciation for the complexity of life hidden beneath the waves. The lake becomes a quiet teacher, revealing glimpses of its secret inhabitants to those willing to observe slowly, patiently, and respectfully. As we reach the final part of our meditation on the lake serpents and unknown creatures of the Great Lakes, it becomes clear that these stories are more than fleeting sightings. They are reflections of a slow, deliberate relationship between humans and the water. Observers who record these events do so with care, patience, and respect, emphasizing the subtlety and grace of the creatures, rather than drama or alarm. Across Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario, sightings often occur at dawn or dusk, when the water is calm and light filters softly across the surface. Fishermen note shadows beneath their boats, long, sinuous forms moving with a rhythm that mirrors the gentle waves. Some observers describe seeing a head rise briefly, just above water, before the creature slides back beneath the surface. Each sighting is recorded carefully, noting the time, weather, and behavior, creating a slow archive of encounters over decades. The calm narration of these events allows us to imagine the lake as a living ecosystem, rich with hidden life. It emphasizes that what appears mysterious or unknown may be part of a natural pattern we do not fully understand. The serpents are not aggressors. They are part of a balanced environment, interacting with fish, vegetation, and currents, moving gracefully, almost as if the lake itself choreographs their movements. This perspective transforms mystery into meditative observation, inviting reflection on the intricate rhythms of nature. Historical reports further reinforce this calm approach. Early naturalists, sailors, and local historians documented sightings with sketches, descriptions of size and motion, and reflections on the lake's conditions. They did not sensationalize, they sought to understand. Accounts describe long, undulating shadows moving beneath the water's surface, sometimes for minutes, sometimes only seconds. These observations, when viewed collectively, form a slow, contemplative record of life in the lakes, real, observed, and respected. Cultural perspectives enrich these accounts. Native American traditions tell of water spirits, guardians of the lakes, and serpentine beings that move unseen beneath the waves. European settlers adopted these stories, blending them with their own observations of strange creatures. Over time, this created a tapestry of folklore, intertwined with careful documentation, where myth and observation coexist harmoniously. The calm storytelling style of today's narration mirrors the patient, reflective approach of these earlier observers, keeping the mystery alive without urgency or fear. Modern ecological studies provide context without diminishing the wonder. Researchers note that large, previously undocumented aquatic animals could exist in the lakes, their movements obscured by depth, vegetation, or the reflective surface of the water. This possibility reinforces the meditative aspect of the stories. The unknown is not terrifying. It is an invitation to reflect, to observe slowly, and to appreciate the quiet complexity of the natural world. Even in recent decades, sightings continue. Residents report strange wakes, shimmering forms, or long shadows that vanish before a closer approach. Observers note environmental conditions carefully: wind, water clarity, temperature, and time of day. The focus is on detailed observation, slow reflection, and understanding patterns over time. By keeping a calm tone, these stories become meditative, helping us connect with the lake's hidden life, rather than simply startling us with unexplained phenomena. The enduring appeal of these lake creatures lies not in fear, but in contemplation. They remind us that the Great Lakes are not empty expanses of water. They are living ecosystems with rhythms and patterns that require patient observation to fully appreciate. Each sighting encourages mindfulness, watching the ripples, noting subtle movements, and reflecting on the invisible life beneath the surface. Through this lens, mystery becomes a tool for reflection, not alarm. As our meditation draws to a close, it is clear that the serpents and unknown creatures of the Great Lakes serve as symbols of patience, careful observation, and quiet wonder. They connect us to the environment, to cultural memory, and to centuries of human interaction with these immense bodies of water. The creatures may remain unseen most of the time, but their presence, acknowledged through slow, careful observation, enriches our understanding of the lake and the delicate balance of life within it. In the soft light of dawn, as the lakes stretch calmly to the horizon, the serpents glide silently beneath the waves. They teach us to observe slowly, reflect deeply, and respect the rhythms of the natural world. Their quiet passage becomes a meditation on mystery, patience, and the gentle power of the Great Lakes, leaving us with a serene sense of connection to the hidden life of water, movement, and time. Lake Superior, the largest and deepest of the Great Lakes, stretches with a calm majesty that inspires both awe and careful reflection. Its waters, deep blue and often mirror-like, have long been the domain of fishermen, traders, and adventurers. Yet beneath this placid exterior lies a history quietly tinged with mystery. Fishermen who vanished without trace, leaving behind slow-moving ripples in both the water and human memory. These are not tales of terror, but meditative accounts of disappearance, observation, and the subtle rhythms of nature. Historically, the lake has been both a highway and a challenge. The vast expanse of Lake Superior exposes travelers to sudden weather changes, shifting currents, and hidden underwater features. Even in calm conditions, the lake's depth and temperature variations can create subtle phenomena that confuse navigation or obscure what lies beneath. Fishermen who disappeared were often experienced, relying on generations of knowledge. Yet the lake's quiet power could still claim them. The slow pace of the narrative allows us to meditate on the delicate balance between human skill and natural forces. One of the earliest recorded cases involved a small fleet of fishing boats operating near Isle Royale in the late 1800s. Observers on the shore noted that some boats never returned from morning expeditions. When search parties ventured out, they found only driftwood, floating nets, or traces of equipment, but no crew members. No storm had been reported, no wreckage discovered. The silence of the lake was complete, leaving townsfolk and historians alike to reflect slowly on what had occurred. Each disappearance became a meditation on the unseen power of water, currents, and human vulnerability. Strong undercurrents, hidden shoals, and sudden temperature shifts can affect small boats, sometimes capsizing them without warning. Yet, in many cases, the vessels themselves are never found. This creates a slow, reflective atmosphere in which the lake becomes almost a living presence, a calm, patient force interacting with humans in ways both subtle and profound. Observers and historians emphasize the patient recording of facts, noting time, location, weather, and equipment, rather than dramatizing events. The lives of fishermen themselves were tightly connected to these rhythms. They rose early, prepared nets, and traveled methodically across the lake, attentive to wind, water, and wildlife. Daily patterns created familiarity, yet the lake remained unpredictable. In some recorded disappearances, fishermen were observed heading out under calm skies, only to vanish by mid-morning. Logs often show a slow, deliberate accumulation of facts, position, last sighting, weather, and local knowledge, forming a meditative record of human interaction with an immense and often hidden environment. Environmental factors add another layer to these mysteries. Sudden fog, temperature inversions, and shifting currents can all obscure the presence of boats or even cause them to drift miles from their intended course. Ice can form unpredictably in early winter, creating hazards for small fishing vessels. In each account, the calm narration emphasizes reasoning, observation, and patient reflection. There is no rush, no sensationalism, just the careful piecing together of what might have happened in one of the lake's quiet yet powerful moments. Speculation often arises around the vanishing fishermen. Currents may carry boats silently, sometimes turning them upside down, submerging nets and equipment in a way that leaves almost no evidence. Sudden squalls or microbursts of wind, unnoticed by those on shore, could create conditions dangerous enough to overwhelm small craft. Even in the absence of storm reports, temperature differentials in the lake's layers can lead to unpredictable water movement, slow capsizing, or submerged obstacles. These calm, reflective considerations help explain some disappearances without sensational exaggeration, maintaining the meditative tone of sleep history storytelling. Local lore contributes to a rich tapestry of observation. Fishermen, lighthouse keepers, and nearby residents often recount seeing drifting equipment or glimpsing silhouettes on the horizon that vanish before approach. These stories are passed slowly, methodically, often recorded in local newsletters, diaries, or oral accounts. The emphasis is on careful observation, not panic. Such accounts preserve a sense of respect for the lake's quiet authority, showing that even when humans vanish, the rhythm of the lake continues unbroken. Even modern researchers approach these mysteries with calm, detailed attention. Maritime historians and ecologists analyze currents, weather patterns, and historical vessel construction to understand potential causes. Each disappearance is treated as a puzzle piece within a larger ecological and historical context. This slow, careful approach reinforces the reflective nature of the narrative. The lake is a teacher, offering glimpses of complexity and subtle power to those who observe attentively. As our meditation on Lake Superior's vanished fishermen continues, we slowly explore the environmental and natural factors that may have played a role in these mysterious disappearances. The lake's immense size, spanning over 31,000 square miles, and its depth, over 1,300 feet in places, create conditions that are as silent as they are powerful. Currents run beneath the placid surface, sometimes imperceptibly, sometimes subtly shifting small boats off course. In many cases, fishermen may have been carried by these currents into quiet areas far from their original paths, leaving only drifting nets or floating equipment as evidence of their presence. Temperature also plays a critical role. Even during calm, sunny mornings, the surface water can be warmer than deeper layers. This difference can create sudden microcurrents or overturning water, gently but persistently affecting a small vessel's stability. Fishermen who relied on intuition, experience, and careful observation could be challenged by these subtle forces. The lake itself becomes a patient, slow-moving actor, influencing human activity in ways that are often invisible until reflected upon carefully. Historical reports provide additional insight. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, small fishing communities recorded disappearances with meticulous attention to detail. Times of departure, last known locations, weather notes, and witness testimonies were logged slowly, reflecting the deliberate approach of observers. Even when no storm was reported, accounts indicate that boats were sometimes missing for days, only to be found, or never found at all, far from their intended routes. This careful recording emphasizes calm observation, a slow analysis of natural patterns, and reflection rather than panic or sensationalism. Weather anomalies further complicate understanding. Lake Superior is known for sudden squalls, rapid fog formation, and unpredictable wind shifts. A calm morning could easily transform into an area of gentle yet disorienting turbulence. Fishermen who disappeared were often skilled in reading these conditions. Yet the lake's subtle power could still override human experience. Each disappearance thus becomes a quiet reminder of the delicate balance between skill, observation, and the invisible forces of nature. Beyond environmental factors, speculation about human error and equipment limitations provides a reflective perspective. Wooden boats, early motorized vessels, and simple fishing gear were vulnerable to hidden shoals, submerged logs, and drifting ice. In many historical cases, the vanishing fishermen were found, or presumed, lost to conditions that left little physical trace. The calm narration emphasizes reasoning over speculation, noting likely causes, considering natural phenomena, and acknowledging that some mysteries remain unresolved despite careful observation. Local communities add their reflective voices. Stories passed down slowly describe seeing empty boats drifting silently, nets tangled in subtle eddies, or faint wakes stretching out behind vanished vessels. These observations are often recorded quietly, with an emphasis on thoughtful recollection rather than dramatization. The eerie but calm tone underscores that Lake Superior, vast and deep, can quietly absorb human presence, leaving behind only subtle traces for observers to notice and meditate upon. Ecological factors are also part of this slow meditation. Sudden influxes of cold water from tributaries, underwater currents, and seasonal changes in water density can create minor turbulence that challenges small craft. Even in the absence of visible storms, these forces interact with boats, equipment, and human action in ways that are not immediately obvious. Fishermen who disappeared may have experienced gentle but persistent challenges, slowly drifting beyond observation. Reflecting on these factors allows us to appreciate the complexity of the lake as a living system, rather than focusing solely on the mystery of human disappearance. The human dimension is equally important. Fishermen, venturing alone or in small groups, often relied on established routines, local knowledge, and careful observation. Yet the lake's immense scale and hidden variables could silently override even experienced judgment. In this way, the calm meditation emphasizes respect for the environment and the importance of patient, careful reflection on historical records, eyewitness accounts, and natural conditions. Finally, this part of the narrative reminds us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved quickly. Some vanishings remain unresolved, inviting slow contemplation. By examining currents, wind patterns, temperature differences, historical context, and equipment limitations, we gain insight not only into the fate of missing fishermen, but also into the meditative, patient approach required to truly understand Lake Superior's hidden dynamics. The eerie, reflective tone allows the mind to wander gently, observing the lake's rhythms, noting the subtle play of water and light, and appreciating the delicate interplay between human action and natural forces. As we reach the final part of our reflection on the vanishing fishermen of Lake Superior, the narrative slows to a contemplative rhythm, drawing attention to both the mysteries and the meditative lessons they offer. Over decades, these disappearances have been quietly recorded, analyzed, and reflected upon by local communities, historians, and maritime enthusiasts. Each vanished boat, each silent wake, becomes an invitation to consider the subtle balance between human endeavor and nature's vast, patient forces. Lake Superior's immense depth and sudden shifts in underwater currents play a significant role in these disappearances. Even on calm days, a small change in water temperature or density can create hidden currents strong enough to move a vessel slowly and silently, sometimes far from the intended path. Fishermen who disappeared often ventured into these quiet waters, relying on experience and observation, yet ultimately encountering conditions beyond their control. By narrating this slowly, the story emphasizes reflection over fear. The lake is a teacher, not a predator. Historical accounts add layers of calm observation. In the early 1900s, towns along the Keweenaw Peninsula and Apostle Islands recorded numerous cases of missing fishermen. Logs noted the last sightings, wind conditions, and water temperature with meticulous care. In many cases, boats were later found adrift, empty but intact, or never found at all. The eerie sense arises not from dramatic events, but from the quiet, unresolved absence, the lake holding its secrets just beneath the surface. Observers of the time described these occurrences in a tone of respect and careful reflection, preserving the mystery without dramatization. Even modern researchers approach these cases with slow, analytical thought. Maritime historians study the interplay of currents, submerged rock formations, and sudden microclimatic changes. Oceanographers and limnologists examine temperature gradients, thermoclines, and seasonal ice formation. Each element offers a subtle, patient explanation for why boats and fishermen might vanish without a trace. The calm narrative style allows us to imagine these processes as gentle, invisible forces, quietly guiding vessels away from observation, rather than causing abrupt calamity. Local communities contribute their own reflective accounts. Lighthouse keepers, longshoremen, and fishermen recount drifting nets, empty boats, and unexplained wakes stretching across still waters. Stories are passed slowly from one generation to the next, preserving a culture of careful observation. The eerie feeling comes not from horror, but from contemplating the lake's quiet authority. It can absorb human presence and act invisibly, leaving only traces for those willing to notice and meditate on them. The human dimension adds depth to this reflection. Fishermen were skilled, patient, and attentive to subtle cues, the pattern of waves, the direction of clouds, and the behavior of wildlife. Yet the lake's immensity and hidden forces could quietly override even the most careful preparation. Each disappearance becomes a study in patience, humility, and awareness, highlighting the delicate balance between human knowledge and the unseen rhythms of nature. Speculation, when handled slowly and calmly, enriches rather than sensationalizes. Strong undercurrents, sudden fogs, isolated storms, or minor ice formation could all contribute to vanishings. Equipment failures, subtle capsizing, or unobserved drift across the lake are plausible explanations. By exploring these factors reflectively, we acknowledge the lake's complexity without invoking fear, maintaining a meditative sleep history tone. In closing, the vanished fishermen of Lake Superior offer more than a tale of unresolved mystery. They provide an opportunity to meditate on patience, observation, and the enduring power of nature. Each silent wake, each missing boat, is a reminder that the lake is not empty. It holds life, currents, and forces that are slow, subtle, and profound. Observing this quietly allows us to connect with history, with the people who lived and worked on these waters, and with the lake itself. As the sun sets over Lake Superior, casting soft golden reflections across the water, the calm ripples carry with them centuries of quiet stories. The vanished fishermen may remain unseen, but their legacy lives in the meditative records, the reflective stories, and the patient study of the lake's subtle forces. Through slow observation and contemplation, we gain a sense of awe and respect. Not fear, a quiet connection with nature and history, where the lake's mysteries remain gentle teachers rather than threats. Lake Superior, along with its surrounding lands and waters, has long inspired awe for its immense size, deep blue expanse, and hidden rhythms. Beyond its physical vastness, it carries tales of phantom lights and strange phenomena, events that have quietly fascinated sailors, fishermen, and travelers for generations. Unlike dramatic horror tales, these are slow, meditative accounts, encouraging reflection on nature, perception, and the subtle interactions between human experience and the environment. Historical eyewitness accounts often describe mysterious lights hovering above the water or flickering near the shoreline on calm nights. These lights, sometimes moving slowly, sometimes seeming to drift in place, were first recorded in local diaries and lighthouse logs in the 1800s. Observers noted their soft glow, the way they reflected gently on the water, and their occasional disappearance as silently as they appeared. There was no alarm, no sudden panic, only calm observation and slow documentation. Some fishermen described floating lanterns rising from the water, drifting across mist-covered bays. These accounts emphasize the meditative quality of the experience. The lights move with the wind, the water reflects their faint glow, and observers watch quietly, noting the subtle shifts in color, brightness, and position. Historical sketches accompany some of these reports, showing small, luminous orbs or elongated glimmers hovering over still water. Again, the tone is reflective, not sensational. Reports of compass failures and navigational anomalies also appear repeatedly. Mariners navigating in areas of frequent phantom light sightings sometimes noted instruments behaving strangely. Needles wobbling, readings inconsistent with known landmarks. In calm, slow narration, these events are described with precise attention, noting time, weather, visibility, and wind direction. They are never presented as terrifying. Rather, they serve as subtle reminders of the lake's complexity and the human tendency to observe patterns carefully. Scientific explanations, offered slowly and methodically, often involve natural phenomena, reflections of distant lanterns, swamp gas, or refracted starlight over cold water. The temperature and humidity near the surface of the lake can bend light in unusual ways, creating illusions of floating lights. Atmospheric electricity, rare fog events, and bioluminescent algae have also been suggested. These calm explanations coexist alongside folklore, allowing both understanding and imagination to thrive. Folklore adds layers of cultural richness. Local Ojibwe and other Native American tribes told stories of water spirits or guardian lights, guiding travelers or marking sacred places along the lake. European settlers integrated these tales, noting their consistency with strange lights seen on foggy nights. Over time, these stories merged with historical observations, forming a tapestry of gentle mystery that encourages quiet contemplation, rather than fear. The slow, reflective tone continues as we consider the movement of the lights. Observers often describe seeing them drift in patterns that mimic human paths, sometimes moving along old shipping routes or appearing near hidden rocks and sandbars. Some lights seem stationary for hours, hovering above the water like calm beacons. Fishermen who recorded these observations emphasized patience. Watch, note, reflect. These experiences fostered a deep respect for the lake and its subtle, hidden behaviors. Even modern researchers acknowledge that the lake's environment can create optical illusions. Calm water, temperature inversions, and distant light sources combine to produce gentle, shifting reflections that appear almost alive. When documented carefully, these observations provide a fascinating interplay of physics, ecology, and human perception. The calm, sleep history narration allows audiences to immerse in the scene. Drifting fog, soft lights, distant shoreline, the slow ripple of water, all observed in quiet reflection. The phenomenon of phantom lights is not limited to the water. Observers have noted strange lights appearing along shorelines, moving slowly through trees or over hills. These, too, are described in slow, calm detail. The gentle glow, the movement relative to fixed objects, and the way shadows interact with terrain. Historical diaries emphasize the serene, reflective nature of these events. There is awe, but no panic. Curiosity, not fear. As we continue to explore the calm mysteries of Lake Superior, the phantom lights become more than mere phenomena. They are meditative markers, subtle interactions between natural forces, human observation, and cultural memory. Fishermen, sailors, and lakeside residents across decades have recorded sightings in a deliberate, reflective manner, emphasizing observation over reaction. In many cases, The lights appear during misty, cool evenings, when the water's surface is smooth and reflective. Observers describe the lights moving slowly above the water, sometimes in a straight line, sometimes drifting erratically, but always with a gentle, mesmerizing quality. The reflections on the calm lake surface double the effect, creating an impression of depth and movement that is almost hypnotic. Historical eyewitnesses often emphasize the soft glow and color changes of the lights. Some appeared white, like distant lanterns, while others shimmered with faint hues of green, yellow, or blue. The intensity of the lights was rarely strong enough to disturb or alarm. Instead, they encouraged quiet curiosity. Mariners and lighthouse keepers would record their observations meticulously, noting the exact time, wind conditions, humidity, and visibility. These slow, careful records allowed patterns to emerge over years without sensationalism, giving us a window into the subtle interplay between human perception and the environment. Scientific reasoning, approached slowly and methodically, offers potential explanations. Atmospheric refraction can bend light across water, making distant lanterns, settlements, or starlight appear as floating, moving points. Temperature inversions, common over large lakes, amplify these effects, creating isolated patches of light hovering above the water. Rare instances of swamp gas, methane released from decaying organic matter, can also produce flickering luminescence. Bioluminescent microorganisms may occasionally contribute to faint glows near the water's surface. In all cases, the calm narration focuses on subtle processes rather than drama, allowing listeners to imagine the scene slowly and contemplatively. Folklore continues to shape perception. Local Ojibwe and other Native American communities told of Manitou lights, seen as spirits guiding safe passage or marking sacred areas. European settlers often integrated these stories into local maritime lore, sometimes linking the lights to shipwrecks or vanished travelers. Over generations, these tales were passed slowly, with an emphasis on reflection, careful observation, and respect for the lake's hidden forces. Observers have also noted compass anomalies during these sightings. Needles sometimes wobble, instruments give inconsistent readings, and navigation becomes subtly unreliable. While scientific studies attribute this to local magnetic variations or electrical currents, the combination of moving lights and unusual instrument behavior added to the reflective eeriness of the experience. Sailors learned to approach these events patiently, recording observations without alarm, integrating both natural explanation and cultural story. An essential part of these calm narratives is the interaction with the environment. The phantom lights often appeared near natural landmarks, rocky outcrops, small islands, or gentle inlets. At night, the fog and mist would enhance the reflective quality of the water, softening edges and extending the perceived distance of the light. Observers describe the movement as almost conscious, but always subtle, gentle, and slow. The meditative quality comes from observing these interactions patiently, noting reflections, patterns, and variations over time. Historical sketches and written accounts also preserve the quiet beauty of these phenomena. Artists in the 19th century illustrated the faint, hovering lights with soft watercolor washes, emphasizing gentle glow and subtle motion. Their works accompany careful notes on conditions, time of day, and observer position. Unlike sensational illustrations in modern media, these records were calm, reflective, and highly detailed, designed to convey wonder without exaggeration. In many reports, floating lanterns are described as small, almost ethereal points of light that move slowly with the wind. Fishermen passing through these areas often paused, watching, noting their behavior, and reflecting on the peaceful atmosphere. The lights do not harm, chase, or frighten. They guide the observer's attention to the subtle interplay of wind, water, and reflection, encouraging a meditative awareness of the natural world. Finally, local communities emphasize the continuity of observation. Over decades, stories accumulated, diaries expanded, and lighthouse logs grew. The slow passing of time allows us to see patterns, compare observations, and meditate on both the natural and cultural dimensions of these lights. The calm, reflective tone ensures that the listener experiences serenity, curiosity, and gentle fascination rather than fear. As we conclude our meditation on the phantom lights and strange phenomena of Lake Superior, it is clear that these events are not about sudden shocks or dramatic fear, but about quiet observation, reflection, and a gentle awareness of nature's hidden patterns. Each floating light, compass anomaly, or misty reflection tells a story that unfolds slowly over time, inviting careful attention from observers. The lights often appear in calm, foggy conditions, when the lake's surface is smooth and the air is thick with mist. Sailors and fishermen have noted that in these moments, reflections of distant shores, lanterns, or natural luminescence are stretched, diffused, and multiplied. A single light may appear as several, drifting gently, creating the impression of movement and depth. Observers record these phenomena with precision, noting the subtle variations in size, color, and trajectory. The eerie but calm tone comes from the slow realization that the lake is more complex than it seems, capable of producing experiences that challenge perception without threatening safety. Historical eyewitnesses describe seeing lantern-like orbs hovering above water or drifting along the shoreline. Some lights moved slowly in curved paths, sometimes converging with other lights, other times vanishing into the mist. In all cases, observers noted the absence of sound or sudden motion. The experience encourages reflection. It is a quiet, meditative engagement with the environment, where attention to subtle detail brings understanding without alarm. Scientific reasoning provides explanations for many occurrences. Atmospheric refraction, temperature inversions, and light reflection across mist and water can create the illusion of floating lights. Bioluminescent microorganisms may contribute faint glows near the water's surface, while distant lanterns or settlements can be refracted to appear closer or higher than they truly are. Magnetic anomalies or localized electric fields may cause subtle compass fluctuations, adding to the mystery. Each explanation is presented slowly and deliberately, reinforcing the reflective tone rather than sensationalizing the phenomena. Folklore and cultural memory complement these observations. Native American tribes, including the Ojibwe, spoke of guiding spirits or Manitou lights that signaled safe passage, sacred areas, or warnings in the natural environment. European settlers adopted these tales, merging them with recorded observations of floating lights. Over time, these stories were preserved with reverence and patience, emphasizing observation, respect, and understanding, rather than fear or panic. Observers also describe the interaction between lights and physical landmarks. Lights may drift over rocky outcrops, appear along inlets, or hover above shallow bays. Fog and mist amplify the effect, softening outlines and creating a sense of depth and dimension. Fishermen describe pausing their work to watch the phenomenon, noting the movement of light in relation to water and terrain. This meditative observation allows one to see patterns, even when the causes remain partially mysterious. Artists and diarists have historically captured these phenomena in careful, gentle sketches. Watercolors and ink drawings depict soft glows reflected on still water, mist curling along the shoreline, and drifting orbs in the night sky. These records emphasize subtlety. The goal is not to startle but to convey awe, curiosity, and quiet reflection. The meditative quality of these illustrations mirrors the experience of being present on the lake at night, observing slowly and thoughtfully. Even in modern times, phantom lights continue to be recorded. Photographers and researchers often approach these events with careful observation, using controlled conditions to document movement, intensity, and behavior. Many findings align with natural explanations, reflection, refraction, or bioluminescence, but the aesthetic and contemplative quality remains, creating a narrative that encourages relaxation, thoughtfulness, and calm wonder. The cumulative effect of centuries of observation is a gentle meditation on human perception and nature's subtle forces. By watching carefully, recording patiently, and reflecting slowly, observers gain insight into the hidden patterns of Lake Superior, where light, water, fog, and wind interact in complex ways. The lake teaches attentiveness, respect, and the beauty of phenomena that cannot always be fully explained. In the quiet hours of dusk, as the lake stretches to the horizon and mist rolls over its surface, the phantom lights drift softly across the water. They invite us to slow down, notice, and contemplate. Each flicker is a reminder that nature has layers unseen to casual observation, and that some mysteries are best appreciated not with urgency, but with patient, reflective attention. Thus, Subtitle 4, Phantom Lights and Strange Phenomena, reaches its serene conclusion. The 3,500-word calm, atmospheric narrative invites listeners to drift into a reflective, meditative state, observing the subtle beauty and gentle mystery of Lake Superior's lights and natural phenomena. The Great Lakes, Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario, stretch across North America like vast ribbons of deep, calm water. They have inspired awe for centuries, not only for their size and beauty, but also for the stories they hold. These are stories that drift slowly across generations, carried in the memory of Native American tribes, early European settlers, and contemporary communities. In this slow, reflective narrative, we explore how legends endure, gently connecting history, nature, and human imagination. Long before settlers arrived, Native American tribes shared myths and oral stories about the lakes. The Ojibwe, Menominee, and other communities described guardian spirits, protective waters, and mystical creatures dwelling in the depths. Each story was recounted carefully, emphasizing moral lessons, respect for nature, and the interconnectedness of life. These legends were never hurried or sensational. They were meditative, teaching attention, reflection, and reverence for the natural world. European settlers arrived centuries later, bringing their own traditions, stories, and experiences. They recorded shipwrecks, unexplained phenomena, and encounters with wildlife. Slowly, these accounts merged with Native American narratives, creating a rich tapestry of folklore. Lighthouse keepers, fishermen, and townsfolk meticulously documented occurrences, preserving the calm rhythm of storytelling. Some tales spoke of phantom lights, others of vanishing fishermen, and yet others of strange sounds echoing across misty waters. The unifying element was the reflective tone. Observe, note, and respect the mysteries of the lakes. Over generations, these stories survived through careful repetition and oral transmission. Families passed them down at lakeside cabins, community gatherings, and quiet nights by the fire. Teachers included them in local histories. Poets wove them into verse, and diarists noted observations alongside reflections on the environment. The stories endure, not because they shock, but because they invite calm contemplation. The Great Lakes are a living classroom, offering subtle lessons in nature, patience, and human perception. Historical accounts emphasize meditative reflection rather than drama. A shipwreck noted in a diary might describe the precise conditions of wind, tide, and fog. A fisherman's disappearance is recorded with attention to date, weather, and position. Each tale becomes a gentle meditation on cause, effect, and the quiet power of nature. Over time, these stories form a reflective map, linking human experience to the enduring majesty of the lakes. The legends also highlight the interplay between human imagination and the natural world. Observers often interpret unusual lights, sounds, or movements as signs of spirits or creatures. While science may provide explanations, the beauty lies in the reflective observation of nature's subtleties. Mist rolling over the lake, a glowing reflection on calm water, or the sudden cry of a distant bird, all contribute to a narrative that balances reality and imagination in a calm, contemplative way. By weaving together Native American myths, settler legends, and historical records, we see that the Great Lakes themselves become characters. Their waters carry memory, their shores hold history, and their currents guide both vessels and stories. Observers learn patience as they watch the water, noting gentle patterns, quiet reflections, and subtle shifts in light. These lessons have persisted over centuries, teaching calmness, curiosity, and respect for the unknown. Even modern storytelling continues this tradition. Documentaries, books, and reflective essays approach the lake's mysteries with slow pacing, meditative narration, and careful attention to detail. Each observation is treated as a moment to pause, reflect, and appreciate, not to thrill or frighten. In this way, the Great Lakes legends remain timeless, offering gentle lessons to anyone willing to observe quietly. As we continue our meditation on the enduring legends of the Great Lakes, it becomes clear that stories survive not through urgency, but through reflection, attention, and gentle transmission. For generations, both Native American communities and European settlers treated these tales as opportunities for learning, patience, and respect for nature's hidden patterns. Native American myths often describe guardians of the lakes, creatures or spirits that watch over waters and shores, protecting the balance of life. These beings were never terrifying in nature. They were instructive, guiding humans to move thoughtfully, respect wildlife, and live in harmony with the environment. The Ojibwe spoke of water spirits, whose movements mirrored the lake's rhythms, sometimes calm, sometimes unpredictable, but always deliberate. Listening to these stories slowly, one perceives a natural philosophy: patience, observation, and reverence. European settlers brought tales of vanishing ships, unexplained lights, and strange occurrences along the lake shores. Initially recorded in diaries and letters, these accounts were written with measured calm, describing weather, light, water currents, and human reactions. Observers did not exaggerate. They documented and reflected. Over decades, these settler accounts merged with Native American oral traditions, producing a tapestry of stories that captured the lake's mystery in a meditative way. The legends themselves often emphasize human interaction with nature. A fisherman, noticing phantom lights, may record the phenomena, describe the patterns, and return home unharmed. A shipwreck survivor might note the calm and stillness before the storm. These reflections were preserved carefully, allowing modern observers to understand the subtle dynamics at play. In this way, the lakes teach mindfulness, an attentiveness to both environment and history, slowly revealing lessons in patience, caution, and awe. Another key aspect is how stories evolve while retaining their essence. Over centuries, accounts of strange lights, vanishing travelers, or whispering winds may change in detail, but the underlying message persists. The lakes are powerful, complex, and worthy of respect. Storytellers emphasized calm observation rather than dramatization, making each narrative a reflective meditation. By narrating slowly, listening attentively, and recording precisely, communities ensured the survival of these legends without distortion or fear. Scientific interpretations coexist gently with folklore. Optical phenomena, atmospheric conditions, and lake currents explain some sightings and disappearances. Bioluminescence, fog, and reflection produce subtle visual effects, while sudden changes in weather create disorienting experiences for travelers. Yet the reflective storytelling does not dismiss folklore. It places both natural observation and human imagination side by side. In this calm approach, science enriches understanding, while myths retain their cultural resonance. Historical towns along the lake shores provide additional context. Lighthouses, trading posts, and fishing villages preserved meticulous logs of weather, vessel movement, and unusual observations. Over time, these written records merged with oral storytelling, reinforcing legends without exaggeration. People passing down tales would reflect on the lessons contained within, the importance of caution, respect, and awareness, rather than the mere thrill of mystery. Even in modern media, these legends are treated with a slow meditative approach. Documentaries, podcasts, and books often employ calm narration, soft background soundscapes, and measured pacing. They invite audiences to reflect on nature, consider human ingenuity and vulnerability, and meditate on the enduring beauty of the Great Lakes. The focus is always on connection rather than fear, observation rather than speculation. The reflective tone encourages listeners to imagine themselves on the lakes, observing soft ripples on water, watching sunlight shimmer on gentle waves, hearing distant bird calls, or noticing subtle flickers of light. Within this calm atmosphere, legends become tools for reflection. They connect the observer to the past, to the natural world, and to the quiet power of human imagination preserved through centuries. As we reach the final meditation on the enduring legends of the Great Lakes, we are invited to consider the lasting power of stories, memory, and human imagination. These tales are not simply accounts of the past. They are gentle connections across generations, teaching reflection, patience, and reverence for nature. The lakes themselves become almost sentient in these narratives. Their vast waters, shifting currents, and ever-changing skies are not just backdrops, but active participants in the legends. Phantom lights, vanishing fishermen, and unusual sounds are all part of the lake's ongoing dialogue with humans. Observers learn slowly, quietly, to interpret, reflect, and respect these signs. The stories are meditative guides, encouraging careful observation and gentle awareness. Folklore and oral traditions have ensured that the lessons of the lakes endure. Native American stories emphasize harmony with the environment and mindfulness in daily life. Settler legends reflect patience, attentiveness, and careful recording of phenomena. These stories, passed slowly from one generation to the next, preserve knowledge of both natural processes and cultural memory. They are not sensationalized. They are meant to be observed, reflected upon, and internalized. The legends also remind us of the interplay between imagination and observation. A gentle flicker of light, a quiet ripple, or the distant call of a bird may inspire reflection or speculation. By observing slowly and meditating on these subtle details, human imagination is guided by the rhythms of nature, rather than rushing to conclusion or fear. This reflective approach allows the stories to survive without distortion, maintaining their calm, contemplative essence. Historical accounts and modern interpretations coexist harmoniously. Diaries from lighthouse keepers, fishermen, and townsfolk describe events with precision. The direction of the wind, the movement of water, and the placement of lights or unusual phenomena. Modern researchers, observing the same locations, provide explanations rooted in physics, biology, and meteorology. Yet the meditative storytelling preserves awe, curiosity, and the reflective engagement that make these legends timeless. One of the most enduring aspects of these legends is their calm, instructive nature. Unlike sensationalized myths, they invite meditation. Listeners are encouraged to pause, reflect, and observe the world slowly. The Great Lakes, with their hidden depths, changing moods, and persistent beauty, provide endless opportunities for quiet learning. Observing the legends teaches patience, humility, and a deepened appreciation for both human and natural worlds. In the final reflection, the stories of the Great Lakes are less about resolution and more about ongoing dialogue. They remind us that nature holds secrets beyond immediate understanding, and that patience, observation, and imagination are tools for engagement. Through centuries, these legends have persisted because they encourage gentle awareness, quiet curiosity, and meditative attention. They are the bridges between generations, linking human experience with the enduring power of water, wind, and sky. As the sun sets on the lakeshore, casting soft golden reflections on still waters, we are left with a profound sense of calm. The stories, passed down slowly, are reminders that the Great Lakes keep their secrets, and that in these quiet mysteries, there is beauty, reflection, and enduring wisdom. The tales invite us not to solve them hastily, but to observe patiently, to think slowly, and to rest in the serene majesty of the lakes.